What happens when you get a cheap lawnmower that was given away by its previous owner? Well, if you're anything like me, it's pretty easy. Find out what's wrong with it, try and fix it, and then sell it to make a profit, or at least that's the plan. But before I can do that, the first thing we need to do is to clean the mower, otherwise we could make things worse. In today's video, we look at this hyper tough lawnmower, and if you saw last week's video, you'll easily recognize it. Now, if you haven't already seen the repair video for this mower, there should be a link at the top of the screen. As of recently, before I start working on a piece of equipment, I typically try to clean it if it's not already somewhat clean, and this one is far from it. Now, this is only the cleaning video, so if this isn't what you're looking for, I would recommend watching the repair portion, and I'd like to thank you for taking a look at this video. Now, I've gotten some great comments about just making the cleaning videos much easier by using a pressure washer. However, I like to be considerate to my neighbors, and I don't wish to make any waves if you catch my drift. As you can see, this mower was very abused, and how do I know that? Well, it's plain as day that whoever was using it didn't mind running over whatever was in its path, whether it be fishing line, string, or the occasional rock, because as you can see, part of the blade is completely missing. They also didn't mind mowing dirt, as the entire deck is covered with what looks to be as much as half an inch of dirt. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time trying to remove it from the deck. Now, to make it easier to clean, I'm also going to remove the blade so I can remove the rope that's wrapped around the shaft and also modify the blade. That way I can use it later on when starting the engine. The reason the blade needs to be on here is because it acts as a counterweight for the crankshaft. If you don't believe me, the next time you take your blade off to sharpen it and before you put it back on, try pulling the rope and you'll soon realize just how strange it is to pull the rope, and it's also quite tough to start. Now typically I would just use my garden hose to get the dirt wet and then wash it away. Unfortunately, because there's so much dirt, it would take several washings, a lot more water, and more time than I could afford, so to speed things up, we're just going to get physical with it and scrape the majority of the dirt off. I hate to admit it, but I probably should have just used the pressure washer, and the reason is pretty obvious. This ended up taking a lot more time than I wanted it to. In fact, because I had to use so much water from the garden hose, the ground where I was standing had become saturated, so I had to move my stand. Now, it's at this point that even I had become tired of washing and scraping the dirt off this deck, so before I continue, I'm going to do something much more rewarding, which is to clean the dirt off the rear wheels. Now, after doing that, I'm going to walk away from this job for a day and then come back with a refreshed perspective, and then we'll continue cleaning it. So it is the next day, and as you can see, there really isn't that much dirt left on the deck, and to be honest, I could probably leave it this way, but since I've gotten this far, I'm going to continue cleaning it until most of the dirt is gone. The main reason I'm going to finish is because I know that some of those who are watching would like for me to finish cleaning it. So I ended up using a super heavy duty degreaser from Harbor Freight for the bottom of the engine because the dirt was caked into the oil from the engine. The main reason to switch cleaners is because I need to check and make sure that the bottom seal isn't leaking. Now, it would have been pretty obvious even before the cleaning if the seal was leaking, but doing it this way will help to confirm it. So unfortunately, it took me quite a long time to clean this deck, and that was my fault for not assessing its condition properly. So learn from my mistake, and if the dirt at the bottom of the deck is quite thick, use a pressure washer even if you have to borrow one. Now if you have more time than money, then do it the way I did it. Just be prepared for a bit of a workout. I will say this, one of the reasons I like this particular engine is because the air filter is made out of foam. Now even though it doesn't filter the air very well, it does mean you can clean it a couple times in its lifetime. Now this one doesn't look to have been cleaned before, so I'm going to try it and see if it holds up to a cleaning, but if it starts to break apart while cleaning it, I'll just have to replace it. Now that the air filter is clean, we just need to let it dry in the sun for a couple of hours, then we'll be able to use it again. If your filter is missing or breaking apart and you need one of these, there should be a link in the description. Now don't be tempted to run your mower without an air filter, otherwise you could damage it. The last thing we need to do is clean the top part of the mower and finish off with the front wheels. Now this time I tried rinsing it off first to see how well that works, and yes, the majority of the dirt disappears, but to get to the last bit of it, you'll need to use some sort of cleaner. Now scrubbing isn't necessary, but it makes a huge difference. Now you can use any multi-purpose cleaner you have on hand. There's no need to use the strongest stuff you can find. I would recommend only using the degreaser for the oily and greasy parts on the engine because it will save your paint from being damaged. Now, if I'm cleaning this mower so I don't get dirt in places like in the carb, fuel tank, or inside the engine, then why bother cleaning the wheels? Well, if for some reason I decide to sell this mower, I want to make sure it looks as good as possible. Now, I'm not saying this mower is like new, but I do want to make sure it doesn't look like junk either. The last thing I want to do is remove the top cover, and that's because I'll need to remove it to eventually fix it. That means this part is going to be visible while filming the repair. The other reason is to make sure the cooling fins are clean, that way the engine won't have any cooling issues while it's running. Now this is going a bit far, but it's cheap insurance to make sure this engine is going to last for as long as possible. After that, I'll put everything back on and then let it dry before we start the repair part of this video. Now, growing up, I never thought cleaning a mower was beneficial. I thought that was more vanity than anything else. But after doing this kind of work for the last couple years and through all the comments I've gotten, it would seem it's certainly recommended. And that is, of course, if you have the time to do it. Now, I wouldn't say it's necessary, but I would say it wouldn't hurt. Now, it doesn't matter if you have a high-priced commercial mower, one of these extremely simple, affordable mowers, or anything in between. If you take the time to keep them fairly clean, it should help you spot if there are any issues with your mower, and in the end, help you keep them going for as long as possible, because, I hate to say it, the price of this simple mower has almost tripled in the last 5 years, which in my opinion is just crazy. So in the end, this cheap mower is now ready for the repair part of this video, and if you haven't seen it already, we find out that a cheap mower doesn't always mean it's cheap to fix. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.